This episode was recorded at the building of Wells on Main Guesthouse and Gatherings in Fairbury, Illinois. It is literally the most beautiful place I have ever laid my eyes upon. They're the perfect place for your next small event or family gathering, and they have nothing but 5-star reviews on their Airbnb page. Check them out on Facebook at Wells on Main Guesthouse and Gatherings. Thanks, guys. Hello and welcome to the Golden Fusion Podcast, where we have conversations with inspiring people from around Central Illinois that you know and love. Today, my guest is none other than Michelle Curl. Michelle has had a truly inspiring life of multiple wars against serious health issues, and she's only 22 years old. Somehow, though, not only does she overcome adversity time and time again, but she maintains a positive attitude throughout. You're really going to enjoy this episode with Michelle today, but first, do you have grass outside of your home? Most people would know this to be a lawn. This is your very own plot of land, your homestead, the last thing you see on your way out and the first thing guests see on their way in. It's a public display of your character. And if you have crabgrass, weeds, and tons of leaves, then you're going to be perceived as a bad planner and a procrastinator. But if your lawn is vibrant, tailored, and leaf-free, then you will be correctly perceived as the smart and respectable person that I know you are. Growing a beautiful lawn represents a triumph precisely because it's hard to do. Much like having a flat stomach, success requires long-term commitment and a level of discipline that is more than what most people can bear. You're a busy person. You shouldn't waste all of your energy and precious time managing your own lawn. What you should do is hire the professionals over at Gomez Lawn Care in Forest, Illinois to do it for you. Gomez Lawn Care offers high-quality services such as mowing, lawn rolling, hedge trimming, landscaping, and much, much more. And they also give free estimates on their site. Head over to their website at gomezlc.com. That's LC for lawn care, and book them in seconds. Their prices are phenomenal, so I recommend you head over there before they start actually charging their worth. So many people in Central Illinois already love the jobs that they do. Again, that's gomezlc.com. Turn your lawn into a Zen paradise. Good morning, Michelle. Thank you very much for coming on today.
No problem. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. I personally am really interested in your story, and I'm sure a lot of other people are, so this is going to be pretty awesome. So rather than jump into the meat and potatoes of what's going on now in the past couple of years, I kind of want to go back and get to know you from a young age.
Okay.
So growing up, from what I can remember, I actually knew you somewhat. You were an active kid. You did gymnastics, that much I know.
Yep.
And maybe some cheerleading. But just kind of explain to me, what was your childhood like?
So I moved here from Florida.
Whoa.
Yeah. Third grade. So
Goodness.
That was a change. And then when I came here, I started gymnastics in Florida, and then when I came here, I continued to do that, and I was competitive in it, all of that. And then I started doing cheer, and I've done basketball, and I did softball, did everything. But yeah, I was just like I always was active, and I don't know, I feel like if I wasn't active, then I was like probably sick.
No, this is just going off my own memory here.
Mm-hmm.
Were you a national champion in gymnastics?
Yeah, I was.
So you were really competitive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
I mean, gymnasts, that is a hard sport.
Yes.
And you have to be so athletic to do that. So you were very active.
Yes.
Well, when did you first start having some troubles with your health? Was it 7th grade-ish, or was it even younger than that?
No, I mean, I was the kid when I was younger that I was like never sick and never missed school. And then in 7th grade, I broke my foot during cheerleading one day and was dealing with that. And then it was just so weird because after that is just when I just started to get sick all the time, and we were so confused by it.
Really? It was almost like that was the beginning of something bad, like a bad streak of health.
Yep.
Broken foot. Was there any real connection? Like, did doctors say, like, there's something here in this foot breaking, or was the foot breaking the result of a pre-existing illness, or no connection at all, maybe?
I feel like there was like no connection, and it was just like coincidence, more or less. And we can't figure out like why that it was like that, because I mean, it was my immune system that suffered, and I don't think like my foot had anything to do with that. It was so weird.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and it took them forever to figure out what was wrong, actually.
Okay. Now this again is off of my own memory. Were you diagnosed with lupus at one time?
Yes.
Okay, well that's a massive. How old were you? When did that happen?
So that was actually what they first diagnosed me with, and that was in 7th grade.
Right after the foot break?
So I broke my foot probably like September-ish of that year, and I don't think that they diagnosed me until March or April, I want to say, of like still of 7th grade. So it was like quite a long period of time, and like my foot didn't get fixed until January, but still, like I was just sick all the time. And like when I say sick, I was missing like 5 days, like
multiple times.
Yeah. And like if I was like ghostly white all the time. Like it was bad. And
I bet your parents were freaking out.
Yeah, there was a couple times when I would just keep throwing up, and they would be like, if you throw up one more time, we're going to the hospital. And like so many times it was like, well, what if we did go? Like, would we have known sooner? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. If I were a parent, it's like once you say, all right, we're going to the hospital, you're thereby admitting that things are serious.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thing to do.
Yeah. Because you never imagine it would be something that serious. Like, you just think, okay, she's just severely sick. You don't ever think that it's
like with the flu type of thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Lupus, I have heard, is a horrible thing to deal with. It's like, I've heard people describe it being like they got hit by a car or like just totally drained of energy. Basically, your own body, there's a war going on inside your own body. Your immune system is attacking not only infection and things like that, but also just your own body. From organs to your hair to your energy to your skin. Like, it's horrible. And then and then you can't always see the effects of it looking from the outside, like looking at you. It's like you can look relatively normal, but you're falling apart in a way.
Which is why, like, in school, a lot of people didn't know like anything that was going on with me, because I do look so normal and I was so active and everything. So they would, like, it wasn't there. It wasn't at the front of their head, like mind, when they would talk about it. But with the lupus, I was diagnosed with that first. They have since changed what I have.
Oh.
Yeah. So because of the lupus, when they look for it in like a kidney biopsy or any type of biopsy that they do for it, they have to tell the person that that's what they're looking for. And then they can say yes or no. There's no real, like, I guess, outline to be like, that is specifically lupus. They can only be like, oh, they're looking for it, then yeah, that's lupus.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, did they change the diagnosis then?
Yeah, because I wasn't showing any other symptoms of lupus besides the biopsy only saying I had lupus.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I would be tired every now and then.
Which is a big symptom, but that's a symptom of a lot of things.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, my body was going through a lot. It was going through medications and, like, everything like that. But that was really the only other thing that I would experience. I didn't experience any, like, pain or anything else that came with it, discoloration, nothing like that. It was literally, I would be tired every now and then the biopsy would say, oh, you have it. So I actually went through 2 diagnoses before the one that was like finalized.
Oh,
so
yeah. Okay.
They did the lupus was first, and that was for a couple years. They're like, this is what you have.
Oh, 2 years, you're like, I have lupus.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's what we were going with. That's what we were treating me with, like everything like that. And then I just really wasn't getting like better. Like, I was like stable, but I wasn't like getting better. And so then my doctor sent me to another specialist, or like someone who was looking more into this other disease, I guess. And so I went and saw her, and she like reviewed my numbers and looked at everything and all of that. And then she came back with that I had something called NPGN1. I couldn't tell you what the heck that is. That one didn't last very long because then they switched it to what I currently have. Well, I have always had, but the diagnosis, which is C3 nephritis, which means that you have a C3 and a C4 complement in your kidneys, and my C3 just doesn't work.
Okay. Are these 2 like primary components of your kidney?
Yeah.
Okay. They're called one more time C3 and
C4.
Aren't those like parts of the spine or neck too? Like your C6
I don't know.
and C7?
Probably.
That's interesting. Okay. So that is the thing that how long have you been living with that diagnosis?
5 years probably.
Okay. So basically the problem roots in the kidney itself.
Absolutely.
So it's not like lupus caused your kidney to start shutting down. It's more that the kidney in and of itself was a little jacked up.
Yes, actually that's the perfect way to put it, because they can do like a genetic test in like your DNA to see like where it was like got off. So not meaning that like someone else in my family like gave it to me, but just like my DNA didn't fully like form, I guess.
Oh, when the blueprints for every part of your body was fine except for those in the kidney. It's like they forgot to carry the 2 or something.
Yep, exactly.
Huh. Okay.
So it's literally only in my kidney that like there's something wrong. Otherwise, like I'm probably very, very healthy.
Wow. So the kidney starts going down, right? And there's no real reason that when a kidney starts going down for it to come back up spontaneously. So eventually you get word that your kidney's on the brink of failure. Was that a phone call that they're like, hey, we looked at your stuff, your numbers, looks like your kidney's actually failing?
It was not quite. I mean, kind of. I think we knew that that's where it was going to go, but I was actually at work and they called me and she's like, your numbers got worse, like extremely worse within a week. And I'm like,
ooh.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, we want to do a biopsy on the kidney again. And so it was the next day we went into the hospital in Chicago. So like, of course, it's a little bit of a drive to get up there.
Northwestern Hospital?
Yep.
It's a solid one.
Yes, very great place. And I was there for a week, maybe just under a week. And they did the biopsy. And that's also when they first told me that like my potassium was really, really high. And they kept asking me, they're like, are you okay? Like, can you breathe? And I'm like, yeah, why? And they're like, well, your potassium is like in range where you should probably have a heart attack.
No way.
And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I'm fine. And so that was also kind of a warning sign with how high my potassium was. And then they came back, I think it was like the next Monday. So I think we got there like middle of the week and it was like the next Monday. My doctor came in and I love her so much. And she came in and she sat down with me and she was like, I think we need to prepare for it. It's not quite there, but I think we need to prepare just so we're ahead of it, which was extremely smart because
ahead of what?
Of the failure. So it was like we were almost to complete failure, where like I would need dialysis, but I wasn't there yet. Like I was still able to live on my own, basically. And so that's when they basically signed me up for the transplant and like all of that. And we started like getting the word out there because the doctor preferred a living donor instead of a like deceased donor. So.
And I guess that would make sense. I want to ask, why would they prefer a living? Well, I mean, if someone's dead, blood flow is not really going to that for a moment of time. It has to be
very, very quickly done, if that's the thing. And so many people aren't organ donors, and you can't.
Really?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people are organ donors?
I think it's becoming like better, but I mean, I think my numbers might be wrong. This is either the state of Illinois or the whole USA. I'm not sure, but there's over 100,000 people who just need a kidney. And that list is forever growing. And so many of them don't get one because people aren't organ donors and they can't find a living donor because of some other issue. I mean, you have to be like the perfect match. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. So that's something I researched in my own time before was just, I thought it was easy to get a kidney. I thought someone would be like, one, people are not that willing to give kidneys. Like they're not like living people.
You can live with one is the thing. And so I feel like that's like the easiest one to do, especially living wise, because you can live with one. You don't need both. And so if you have the opportunity to help someone, personally, I guess me going through it, I don't see why you wouldn't help someone.
Yeah.
But I do know some people like to think, okay, what if someone in my family needs something? And it's like, I get that. But at the same time, this person that you do know is suffering, like type of thing. Mm-hmm. And yeah, a lot of people just aren't organ donors, and it just seems crazy to me because you're not using them, but you can still live on through these other people if you are.
I'm curious what the numbers are. I wouldn't be surprised if, I bet most people aren't, but I don't really know.
I mean, even I thought like with my like medical issues that I couldn't be, and I like brought it up to my doctor and she goes, you have other organs.
Yeah.
We can use those. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Because I mean, why wouldn't I want to help someone? Especially since going through something myself, like just makes sense that way.
Yeah, no kidding. I hope I'm an organ donor. No, I didn't I might not
everyone
be.
needs to check.
My goodness, yeah.
And you can easily also sign up like online. I did an event last summer out at the racetrack actually, and I asked people like, if are you an organ donor? And if they were, then they were entered into a raffle that I had a whole bunch of different like race car shirts and stuff. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them were. And then people who weren't, like I had a little laptop set up where they could sign up easily.
Yeah, you got to make it convenient if you want people to make a switch.
Exactly, yes.
So what was that like mentally? Because you start preparing for if your kidneys fails totally. Mm-hmm. Did you eventually get to the point where like, all right, your kidney's no good?
Yep, okay. I did, yes.
What was that like mentally? Then what'd you do also?
Mentally, I think it was like probably the hardest thing I had to go through actually.
Did a doctor come in and say, hey, bad news?
Yeah, so I can't fully remember, but I think I was having a doctor's appointment like every 2 weeks maybe up in Chicago. And it was with my same doctor every time. And she would look at my numbers. She would do some simple tests on me. And finally she's like, I think that it's time that you start dialysis. I don't think that we're at a safe point anymore. And I'm kind of like at that point like, oh, okay.
Oh, dude, that had to be like a punch in the stomach.
Yeah, because I'm just hoping like I could hang on until like something happened. Mm-hmm. And
were you waiting for a donor?
So at that point, I still was. Yeah, we had been looking for like 6 months at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know it's possible for people to get a donor before they start dialysis. Yes. I used to think that you had to be on dialysis before you.
No, they prefer if you don't be on dialysis. I mean, they're going to do it regardless, but I guess best case scenario is you don't have to do it. But yeah, she came in and she told me that, and I'm like, oh, okay. And so then we tried to set up the whole appointment for it and everything. Well, actually, I guess I should explain. There's 3 different types of dialysis that you can do. Mm-hmm. There's the one that everyone knows, like
through the wrist.
Yeah. You can do the wrist or the chest, I believe, is the other spot. They just put it in like a port, and then you go to the facility like 3 times a week or how often you need to go, and they hook you up. You do it, all that. And that's really draining from what I've heard. I didn't have to do that specifically. Mm-hmm. I did what was called hemodialysis, and I did that in my dorm room, actually.
Hemodialysis, okay.
So what it was is they kind of just put like a tiny little tube in my stomach, and I had just a machine that looked like a printer, actually, like a little tiny printer, and and then big like IV bags is what they looked like, and I would just hook up while I was sleeping to this machine, and it would for 8 hours it would just do its thing, and I would just sleep.
And it would hook up by your belly button type of area?
Yep.
And were those bags full of dialysate or whatever? I don't know if that's the correct word.
I don't know if that's the correct word either, but yeah, that's what would happen. So, I mean, there's more to it. Like I had to do a lot of hooking up to the bags into a drain and like all this other stuff. But in the end, I was just able to hook up while I went to bed and then disconnect in the morning, and I could go on with my day.
Mm-hmm. I think the way that hemodialysis works is that it hooks up to your stomach, and it basically pumps dialysate into your abdominal cavity.
Yep.
And somehow dialysate pulls through the membrane of all that stuff there.
Yeah.
Pulls like the toxins out. I don't know how it was incredible.
No, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it just says, okay, we got all the toxins out. and it's still like just a bunch of liquid sitting in your stomach.
Yeah, and then
Or
it
not
would
your
just
stomach, but
drain.
and then it pulls back out.
Mhm.
That was a fascinating thing to learn about. I was like, no way.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, quick question.
Yeah.
Is dialysis something that's supposed to be long term? Like, or
No.
is it like this can only last for so long?
I mean, you'll do it up until, your body gives out, but they prefer, like, the doctors really don't like you to be on it that long.
Mhm.
And I can't personally tell you the reasoning behind that. I think it just sooner or later either stops being as effective or it's just not good for the body in general.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah, understood.
But I personally only had to do it for 5 months, which thank God that's all I had to do it for. And I'm just happy that technology grew so much that I was able to do it the way I did. And I could stay in school and I could stay in my sorority and do everything like that. Like,
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta ask, like, what was that like having to hook up? How often did you hook up to that machine?
So it's crazy to think that in that time I can still say my numbers were good enough, but my numbers were good enough that I only had to do it 5 out of 7 days a week, and I didn't have to do it every night. So like if I had something going on one night and I just didn't want to do it, I could move it to a different night. It didn't matter. But it was really easy in my lifestyle, I guess, at that point to do it. And all my friends were just supportive of it. Like if I couldn't go out or do something because I was like, well, I gotta go do that thing. And they're just like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. And like I don't even know. Like
it sounds like it wasn't like humiliating or like embarrassing because maybe you had good friends.
So they actually would have the company was called Baxter that brought all the solution and stuff to me, and big like boxes of it. And I wasn't there one day for something, and I like called my RA and I'm like, hey, can you like let them in, because didn't realize they were coming on this day. And he did. It was like no issue, like nothing like that. And like it was like people knew and they just didn't care. And at first, I think that was like what was stuck in my head for so long, is like people are going to just think I'm broken in like this sense and that I need pity and all this. And like I just didn't want that. And so like I did hide it for a while. And then once like obviously I was on dialysis and stuff, people found out, but a lot of people still didn't find out because obviously it wasn't their business if they weren't that close to me, I guess.
Right.
But then once the news came out about my transplant, everybody knew.
So that's okay. So I want to talk about all the details surrounding how it is that you found out. But first, I want to talk about heart attacks. As we approach another dreaded Midwestern winter, consider the fact that every year there are hundreds of deaths from, you guessed it, shoveling snow. It's strenuous work to move wet and heavy snow, and it has potential to cause a dangerous surge in heart rate and blood pressure, not to mention snap your spine. So if you have a driveway and value your heart health and your spinal health, then I suggest you head on over to GomezLC.com and hire the incredible services of the Gomez Lawn Care team. They're young, they're strong, and they love shoveling snow, raking leaves, and making your home look gorgeous. You will become the envy of your neighbors this fall and winter. I kid you not, I personally ride my bike around Fairbury Forest and Chenoa a lot, and I have seen many glorious lawns, and they all seem to have a Gomez Lawn Care sign out in front of them. Keep your property looking beautiful this season, and save your body and save your time. Be a responsible adult and hire the services of the Gomez Lawn Care team. Their prices are incredible, booking them is easy, and they do a great job. Head on over to GomezLC.com and let the pros take care of your lawn. That's GomezLC.com. Anyways, you're doing dialysis regularly.
Yep.
Then, so eventually you get the news that you have a potential match or a match.
Yes.
That's someone that you have a donor. That there's a kidney that's ready to be put in you, kind of thing, right? And what was that? How'd you find out? Like, start from the beginning of that.
So there were actually 3 different days and kind of a whole bunch of emotions that like built up to it. So the first day, I think I was actually like getting my nails done. And
were you in school, just real quick?
Yes.
Okay, so you're still in school, still doing dialysis.
Yep. And this was in beginning of March of 2019, I think, was when I got the first phone call. And I was just getting my nails done, finished up with that, and then I get a phone call. And whenever I see like the Chicago number pop up, I'm like, I instantly want to have a heart attack because I always feel it's bad news. Like,
oh, yeah.
Always. And so like I kind of like freak out a little bit, and I answer it, and then she goes, I just want to let you know, like, we think we might have a match. And at first I'm going, don't get my hopes up. Like, first off, I'm in public and I'm like trying to hold it together. Like, oh my gosh. And so I didn't really say anything about that one. I was like, that one's still iffy. And I'm such a, what is that word?
Pessimistic or something?
No. What is the word? When you have like, not stereotype. What?
Well, like stereotypical something or
No.
Basic?
Probably. But like when, like, superstitious. That's the word.
Okay. Well, so basic.
I could not get that word. But like, I'm very superstitious about things. So like, I get nervous and I'm like, well, I'm not going to say anything in case it falls through, because then by telling other people, I'm going to continue to get my hopes up.
Right. So
I didn't say anything. And then I got another phone call, I think a week later. And my friend was actually doing my eyebrows. It was always at weird times. And
that's a good luck charm.
I guess. And I answered the phone, and that's when they told me we have a match. Like, officially we have a match. And they couldn't tell me who it was because of like HIPAA laws and everything. And so I'm going, okay, cool. Like, wonder who it is more of what's going on. And I mean, I broke down in tears, and I hate crying. I don't know why, but I hate crying. And I broke down in tears. And my friend, who has never seen me cry or anything, just kind of goes, oh no, what do I do?
Well, this is humongous news, because this thing that is the root of the vast majority of all your suffering from a health perspective, this thing, that faulty kidney that you have, is about to be replaced potentially by a brand new or just a healthy kidney.
Yep.
It's life-changing. To get that on one phone call, like, that had to be pretty heavy.
Yeah, it was. Because like, if you just like think about it, even though I still had a lot of freedom, even being on dialysis, I was still living on a machine at the same time.
Gosh.
So it's like that thing was, I don't want to say keeping me alive, because I mean, I was still able to like do a lot of things, but without it, where would I have been type thing. And so like getting the news of like, almost like you're going to be fixed is amazing. And so obviously I called my parents and I told them, but then again, still superstitious. And I said, we're not saying a thing until it's like set in place, because that's just who I am. And then I think it was later that week, it was like one of the first races of the season.
The Illini 100?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
And so I went there. I think it was just me, and I met my family there, and my dad and my brother are cleaning the car or whatever, and I'm over there talking to people, and my dad leans over and goes, Michelle got a kidney, and like just whispers it to him.
You said, say that again?
My
dad?
Yeah, my dad told my brother that. Well, one of my brothers, my brother Jeff. And so then my dad comes up to me and goes, hey, Jeff wants to talk to us in the trailer. And I'm going, well, what did I do? Like, I was like,
you thought you were in trouble or something?
I'm like, well, I didn't do anything. And so we go in there and he starts talking. He goes, so like, I heard you got a kidney. And I just turn around and like hit my dad in the arm. And I was like, we're not telling people. And he goes, I didn't say anything. And then Jeff goes, no, I know, because it's me. And we both had like this, we were like, wait, what? And so then I cried again, because I was like, are you kidding me? Yeah, so that's how I found out who it was. But yeah, I was so mad. I was like, you're not supposed to tell people.
That's hilarious. I think it's incredible that your brother kept that, because he has to do testing for months, right?
Yeah. He kept that a complete secret. The only people who knew were him, his wife, and then his actual mom is the only three people who knew.
Oh, because he is your half brother.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, but you would he's your brother.
He's my brother.
I have half brothers, and I have never once like called them outright my half brother until someone.
No, it's so weird.
Yeah, it's like they are my brothers. But one thing that I thought was really interesting was that I read in an article about where they interviewed Jeff, is that he said on the way to the first test or something that they were doing, he and his wife were driving, and his wife said like, out of nowhere, I know this is going to be a match. I know you're going to be. And chances are it's not going to be, because it's hard to get an exact match. But to say something that bold to your husband about his little sister with a failing kidney, like, You better be pretty confident in what you're saying. I just thought that was interesting to read.
It was also really interesting because Bridget told me that story as well. And I told her, I was like, if I'm being honest with you, even when they told me that we needed to prepare for it, that first initial like time that they said we need to prepare you for transplant, in my head, I knew it was Jeff.
No way.
Yeah. I don't know how to explain it. It was like I could see like some type of like vision, I guess. And I just knew it was Jeff.
Really?
Yeah. I never told anybody that because it felt so weird that
it's like,
that happened.
You know the reaction you're going to get. It's like, right.
Yeah.
But no, that's so weird. It's like outside. I don't even know how to explain it. It's hard to explain with mere scientific terms.
Yeah.
But perhaps maybe one day we'll be able to. It's like, I don't know how that works, but that's incredible.
Yeah.
And just curious, were you like, thank you, God? Or were you just like, thank you, universe? I don't know.
No, I literally would pray to God, like, I don't want to say every night, but almost every night I would pray and just be like, if you help, like, heal me, I will, I don't know, like, you know how you, like, make exchanges, like, with them?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's what I would do, and it was, like, almost every night, and so then, like, it happened, and I was like, okay, like, let's go. Like,
that's funny you said exchange. When I'm desperate, like, I do go to that bargaining style of
I'm
prayer.
Like, whoa.
I remember one time I was like, I had a weird fungus-ridden fingernail, and I was like, God, just fix this gross thing. It's so embarrassing. If you do, I'll say a rosary every day this year. And it was really odd because I'd lived with that for like 3 years. This really horrible looking fingernail. And literally that month it went away, and I was like, "Oh!"
All right,
I was like, "Is that divine intervention?" Because that was near miraculous, but it's such a small deal because it's a fingernail. But then I'm like, "Dang it, I have to say a rosary." Like I made a promise. And if you bargain with God, be prepared to follow through.
Exactly.
With it. But okay, so you got that news. That's incredible, and that was big news at the time. I remember that time of the year, everyone in Fairbury was talking about that, and I'm sure you got interviewed at least a few times.
I did. Yep.
And well, eventually, you had the surgery.
Yes.
And how did that go? I think there's some good things from that, right?
So we had to be up there at 6 a.m. So we left like at 3 a.m. I don't think I slept the night before at all, and it was so weird because, I mean, like I said, when I would get a phone call or go to Chicago or anything, I would get nervous. Like, it was going to be bad news. And I don't know why this was my thinking going into it because, I mean, surgery can be scary. You don't really know how the outcome is going to go. And in my head, I was like, well, you're either going to be fixed or you're just not going to be here. And so I was probably the calmest I have ever been for anything.
You would think the opposite.
I was just like, all right, let's go. I was not nervous at all.
Wow.
Yeah. I can't speak for Jeff, but I mean, personally, I wasn't nervous.
You're going from helping to potential.
I know.
And you're going to either fix or not,
you
know?
Exactly. So, but before my surgery, I also knew that like he was out of his and he was okay. So, I mean, that also helped.
He was out of his before you. I guess that's how surgery actually works. Why did I think you guys were in the same room? And they're just like, here you go. What's interesting is when you put a new kidney in, correct me if I'm wrong, I very well might be, don't they keep your 2 kidneys in?
Yes.
And then they put his, and so you got 3?
Yes.
But one's not functioning or something like that?
So I have 3, but only 1 is functioning.
Oh.
Yeah.
So when you have kidney failure, were both of your kidneys going?
Yeah. So you can have kidney failure and it can be like both of them function at 50 because it still evens out to 1. But the Lord had reasons, but mine just weren't there ever, I guess. But yeah, so both of mine were affected pretty badly.
You were about to go under, and that's when they say, hey, we got Jeff's kidney. It's go time.
So actually, I think his surgery was like at 8 a.m. And I didn't go back for mine until like 12:30, 1 o'clock type thing. And so he was in his, and obviously my dad's getting updates, like phone calls, because, I mean, he's the parent. And so they're like, he's doing good, he's fine, all that. And then they finally call me. They're like, we're ready for her. We're going to get her prepared and everything. And that was at like 11 that they said that we're going to prepare for her. And so at that point, I think that he was almost done with his surgery. And they were like, he's good, all fine. And so then they still have to make sure that kidney's good, even at that point.
What do they do? Put it on ice or something like that?
I think so.
Yeah.
But I mean, they still have to make sure, like, even at that point, it still might not happen that the transplant could fall through. And so I never, like, fully got my hopes up, even on that day where it was like, until I'm rolled back there, this thing could still fall through the ground at any time. And so, like, that was probably the biggest thing for me, is like I never tried to get my hopes like too high,
which is fair. I mean, yeah, especially going through what you've been through, you know better than to get your hopes up for something that has not happened yet.
Yeah.
Like,
yep, exactly.
Well, then you go in. You go under, you have the surgery. How'd it go?
Well, I'm guessing it went fine because I woke up.
Yeah.
It was good. I was in a lot of pain. Actually, fun fact, not really fun fact at all, but they give you morphine for pain, and you have like a little button, so like whenever you need it, you like push it. Well, they were seeing like I had pushed my button like so many times in like this short time frame, and it's only set up where it can give it to you like every 15 minutes, but I'm still like pushing this button, and I'm like, I'm in like severe pain. This is not helping. I need more. Yeah. And so they like upped it a little bit because they're like, well, yeah, I guess that is a little low. And then it was like fine after that. But I mean, I was in pain, and I was like, nobody touch me. I don't want to be here right now. Yeah. But the surgery was good. And I mean, my numbers were better than they had ever been, everything like that. It was like amazing. And honestly, I think I probably had the best like surgeon that I could have ever asked for, because a lot of times with kidney transplants, for sure, I can't speak on other transplants, but they use staples to like close you, and that just sounds horrifying to me. And there's only 2 doctors that do transplants that use glue, and I happen to get one of them. And so I just had glue. I didn't have staples or stitches or anything like that. And my scar.
So your scar has to look a lot less gnarly than that.
Yes, exactly. And I also, like, the week before, I was like looking up like where transplant scars are normally. I'm like, okay, I got to prepare myself for this. And a lot of the ones I saw were like high up or like, you know, on the side or something. But mine is like, I don't know, like in my pelvis, I guess. And it was so much lower than like I had ever expected. And I'm going, well, alrighty then. But yeah, and I had glue, and like my scar is just like real nice and clean, and like honestly, it's very faint, to be quiet. So that was just all like really cool, I guess. But
that's great. Yeah, I remember I one time had staples in my head because I got like
just sounds horrifying.
Well, I got a tiny gash too, and they use staples. And anyways, the scar is horrendous, and it's like 8 years old, and it's like an inch wide. It's like, it sucks. I wish they would have used glue and given me a pretty little scar instead of a wide
just
thing.
Sound horrifying to me. And every time I went in for a checkup, every 2 weeks, it was all the time I had to see them just to make sure things were going okay. And every time they're like, do you still have your staples? And I go, I don't have staples. I had glue. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, they were always so confused by it. And I was like, I'm not complaining. I loved it.
So right away, initially after the surgery, though, things looked good. Is that correct?
Yep.
If someone were to go to your profile, this is just off my own observation, I can see a visible like explosion of excitement on your on your profile, because it goes like going in for surgery kind of quiet, and then it's like And I mean, you were getting ready to go into your senior year, right? At Eureka at that time? Do I have my timeline right?
Yes. So my junior year was when I dealt with all the horrifying parts of it. And then like my senior year is when I went in healthy, actually. So yeah. It was like the summer in between. And I actually was taking 2 online classes at the same time.
Gosh, that's pretty nuts. I don't know how you balance that stuff, really. I mean, you had a lot going on, and you're still making school work. Yeah. And you were, I'm sure obviously not during that time, but you were a captain on the cheerleading
I was
squad,
at the same time. Yeah. I was the captain my junior and my senior year. So even through all of that,
So one thing, this is just my own little note. I'm good. Personally curious. I've read about people who have heart transplants, kind of developing the same cravings as their donor. The recipients. So is that not baloney?
It is so true. So I have never been like big on ice cream. Like I have to be like 100% like, yeah, I want ice cream like right now. It's not something I ever like reach for just for a snack. Jeff will eat ice cream all the time. And I mean, that's his go-to snack, like was ice cream. And after my surgery, all I wanted was freaking ice cream cones all the time. And that wasn't me. And we were so confused by it because like everyone knew like that's not what I ate, and they knew that that's what he ate, and so we just kind of joked about it. And then I finally did some reading too, and I was like, no, this is real. Like, and it was even weirder because he stopped eating ice cream at that point, and it was like, and so we just called it the ice cream kidney for a while. And then, like, gave it a month, and he started eating ice cream again. But it was so weird.
That is seriously weird, and it's like there's no way around it. So you developed a craving that he had from that transplant.
And it was something that like I never ever really ate before. I mean, I would eat it and I liked it, but it was not something I was like, yeah, I want ice cream right now. Like, it wasn't like that. It was so weird.
Okay, so things were good for a little while. Is that correct?
A very short while.
Right. And after a kidney surgery or a kidney transplant, after any transplant, you have to go on a serious amount of immunosuppressants so that your body does not reject this new foreign organ. So your immune system's low for a good while.
Yeah. So, well, actually, I don't know if this is what you were talking about or not, but it was 2-3 weeks after my surgery, I actually had my first little rejection episode. And so I freak out. Immediate reaction is freak out. I was like, I just got it. Why is this happening?
What's the reaction episode look like? Like, how do you know?
So the whole time that they're building you up for the transplant, they're like, rejection is not something we want. Like, obviously it sounds horrifying. Like, you don't want to do that because you don't really have any other option at that point. And so when they call you and they're like, we think you might have rejection, your first reaction is to freak out.
No, wait a second. Okay, if it doesn't take, you're kind of screwed. More screwed than ever before. And that can that get the best of people and like be a potential life ender if they're? Or can they just take it out again?
They can't. I don't think that they can really take it out because they do have to disconnect, like it's a wire. They have to disconnect the old ones to the new one. So the kidney then is connected to like the bladder and like everything else, because otherwise it would just be a new kidney floating in there. Right. So I think that it would probably just be like you have to go back on dialysis if it is that bad. But a lot of times because they monitor your blood so often, they're able to kind of be like, oh, nope, this is the start of it. And so they called me and they told me that, and I'm freaking out thinking that it's the end. And then as soon as I get into the hospital, they're like, this is common. And I'm like, you guys should really start with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of funny maybe to you, but that's the truth. Like, you can give someone a heart attack.
Yeah.
No kidding.
And so what actually ends up happening is, in most cases, in my cases at least, was I would just do like 3 days of basically a lot of steroids. And it would kind of just fix it. And I can't really explain the science behind it, but that's what would happen. And so far that's happened twice to me.
So they just pumped you full of steroids. Did they cut back on your immunosuppressants? Because this is a fine balance you have to have. It's like, I don't know the science of it.
They changed my not rejection meds, but immunosuppressants almost weekly, I want to say. Like, it's a balancing point. Some weeks, or I mean, sometimes it'll be fine for a long time. They're like, all right, your numbers are just where they need to be. And then other times they're like, okay, they're too low. And so they put me on more, actually. And then there's other times where it's like, okay, that's a little too high, and they drop it down. So it's kind of forever changing. And in the rejection part, though, I don't think that they really mess with it much. If they do, it's just a little tweak every now and then, but mainly they kind of just do the whole steroid part of it, and that normally will fix it or stabilize it enough. And so far that's been my experience with it.
Got it. They more or less kind of fix that the first rejection episode. But eventually you start getting sick or something like that. Again, this is a separate thing. How soon after? And then you have to go back to Chicago. That's when they start to think like, and this is kind of common after a transplant, a kidney transplant especially maybe, that you develop like EBV or something?
So they
You
test
contract
me.
EBV, I should say.
They have that as one of the tests for my weekly lab work. Every couple weeks, I think, is when they test it. And it was really weird because it was like the month. So I want to say it's like every month they test it. The month before I had gotten sick, I had no trace of it in my system at all. And then all of a sudden, I was sick. And
EBV is mono, correct?
it can be, yeah.
Oh,
So that's why I thought I had mono. Like, I genuinely thought I had mono even before I knew that that's what I had. And I'm like,
just because you were tired and like
I was
weak.
just really sick, yeah. And like my lymph nodes were like swollen and stuff. And because of all of it, I ended up having like an issue with one of my back molars. And so I went to the dentist, and then he's like, well, I don't really know what's going on. And so he sent me to a specialist, and the specialist did a little biopsy on that molar. And that's when we found out that it was EBV. And then he was confused by it because he was like, well, I don't understand. And so at that point, we told my kidney doctor that, and then they admitted me into the hospital and everything because they were trying. Their main goal at that point was to make me better because I was just miserable. Like, everything just hurt in my face.
Yeah, because the stuff is swelling, right?
Yeah.
Your lymph nodes, and what's that doing? Is that pushing your molars?
So I really don't know what the connection between my top molar and that was. I absolutely have no idea, and no one really does. It was so weird. But then once they treated my lymph nodes later for the cancer, because they ended up finding out that it was cancer.
Right. And that's the reason that happens is because EBV, typically we're all exposed to it. Like 90% of us already have it we get it from childhood, and our immune system basically takes care of it.
Exactly.
But when your immune system's down and you get a transplant, something there, what that EBV does is it basically corrupts like B cells in your body or something by some weird mechanism. Anyways, it corrupts those B cells, and it just causes them to rapidly, uncontrollably multiply. And that's cancer in a nutshell.
Yep.
So it's kind of a risk that comes with transplants, which sucks.
Yeah.
But so, boom, you have EBV, and hey, this is basically evolved into or allowed for this PTLD, post-transplant lymphoproliferative disorder, something like that. It's a kind of cancer.
Yep.
So you had EBV and you had cancer. You did. I mean, you had cancer.
I mean, it's definitely not as major as like breast cancer or pancreatic cancer or anything like that. But I mean, it was a cancer, and it explains a lot of how I felt in that time. And then on top of that, because I went to Chicago and it was in March and April, when everyone's worrying about COVID and it's the start of it and everything, they test me for it, and then that comes back positive.
Yeah, so, COVID on top of all this.
I had COVID on top of it, yeah.
Did you find this all out? Like, did you find EBV, the cancer, and COVID? Was this all in like the span of a few weeks, or?
I would say it was in a span of a few days.
Good heavens.
Yeah.
That would be totally understandable for someone in your situation to kind of like fall into a depression.
Yep.
Whoa, hold up. I have a question. Since you had COVID, I know the protocol for having someone with COVID in the hospital is really, really strict, and you can't see anyone.
Yep.
Especially not, your family.
Yep.
Could you see your family?
I was completely isolated for over a month and a half.
Are you kidding me?
And it put me in a depression.
Oh my gosh. And how long did you have? Well, first of all, just talk to me about what that experience was like. Your isolation, how the illnesses were, like the life of COVID and stuff. Like, what was your life like?
It was weird. So I get admitted well, I was supposed to be admitted for the EBV regardless. Well, then they're like, well, you have COVID. So then they put me on the COVID floor, which
is extreme isolation and stuff.
Yeah. Like my door couldn't be open at all. Luckily, I had a pretty big room. Like I had that corner room, you know, it was real fancy like. Yeah. But my door was never open. Nobody was really ever in there with me. If they did, they came in like a hazmat suit, it seemed. I mean, not really, but I mean, they had everything on. And then they would just stay there, do what they had to do, and then they would leave. Like they wouldn't really talk. They wouldn't stay. They wouldn't do anything, which is understandable. I get it. But at the same time, like I'm in there by myself 24 hours a day, and it was for an extremely long period of time, I personally felt like. And I know there's other people that have been in the hospital for longer than that, but it was bad in that sense mentally. And it was weird though, because the first 2 weeks that I was admitted, I was just in and out of sleep constantly. And a lot of people, I don't want to say a lot of people, but there's some people out there that have like text messages or a message from me, and it makes absolutely no sense because I was like not awake, but I was replying to people on like Snapchat or texting or anything like that, and people are like, is she okay? Like, is something wrong? Which obviously there was, but with the whole like COVID experience of it, obviously, like, my body's been through a lot, and I'm on immunosuppressants. I don't have really an immune system at all. So something like that should be very dangerous to me. And then on top of that, I had cancer and all of that. But I didn't have any symptoms of COVID besides the positive test.
Tested positive?
Yes. And so it kind of makes me think a little bit, just because I don't have an immune system to fight that. And plus I'm dealing with more at that time. So I feel like I should have had a lot more side effects and effects from COVID, but I didn't. But I still tested positive for an extremely long amount of time.
Yeah. If you're over 80 and you get COVID, let alone if you're over 80 and obese or something like that, you low immune system, weak immune system, there's a good chance that it could kill you.
Yes.
Your immune system was very likely lower than all those things. Like you were basically an obese 80, 90-year-old. and it lasted a long time, and it didn't get the best of you, despite also having these other conditions that you were dealing with. Yes. So what are your thoughts on COVID? Do you think it's a little, well, I'll let you say some stuff if you... You can be honest, you know.
Yeah, I do have like conflicting opinions on it. I still take precautions. I still wear a mask, and I stay away from people if I'm outside, just out of respect. Like, I know that there are some people that are extremely worried about it. And I mean, I still am. Like, if I do ever really get it severely, it could severely damage me. Or kill me, I guess. And so I still follow protocols and everything that I need to, but it makes me think a little bit that someone with my immune system would test positive in Chicago for over a month and a half. But as soon as I come home and I get tested, because when I came home, I was still positive, but we finally told them, like, you have to let me go home. Like, I'm slipping into severe depression. I can't be here. And the cancer, I had been treated 2 times for it already by then. So I had 2 treatments of that in me. It was getting better. And so they were like, okay, yes, we'll let you go home. So when I came home, I was still positive with COVID. And as soon as I came home and I got tested, I was negative.
That's freaking weird.
And so I do have conflicting opinions, and I was doing my research, obviously, while I was in the hospital and outside of the hospital. And just one number that really has stuck with me during that time was all the states that touch Illinois' borders. If you add up all their cases and then compare it to just Illinois, we still have like 20,000 more cases than all of them combined. And I know that we have Chicago, which is a huge hub, but that still is just like kind of weird to me that our state has so many more cases than other people. And every time you test positive, it's a new case. It's not just one case.
Oh, so you test positive. Whoa. How many times do they test you in the hospital?
A lot.
Okay. So it's like one person is tested. It's like, let's test you 20 times in one day, 20 positive test results. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And what I think is really interesting that's really stuck in my head, and we talked briefly about this before, my good friend's mom is I don't know the exact title, a data analyst, I'll say. She puts together the numbers of how many people have how many cases of this and that are in this hospital, and then she, puts those numbers forward to media agencies or whatever, the CDC, to put out and say how many people have this case and that case. And she's been fed up for quite a while because if you test negative for COVID and then you still show symptoms, you're put down as a 1, as a positive. You do have COVID. Yep. And that's like one kind of false positive there. And there's so many cases for false positives and stuff. So and who's to say that there's not more people that don't have COVID than do, but they all test, or what am I trying to say here? The numbers are exaggerated. That's greatly, maybe.
Well, and the other thing that I think people need to really consider, because, obviously I was talking to my doctor at the same time. I'm like, hey, I want to know the information that's going on right now. And so every time they would test me and it would come back, sooner or later I got fed up. And I was like, how accurate are these tests? And it was kind of still at the beginning stages of it, but I don't really think that much advancement has been made in the form of tests for COVID. And at that point, he told me they're less than 70% accurate.
Really?
Yeah. So, a lot of people really start to rethink testing when they're less than 90% accurate, let alone less than 70% accurate. Again, even if you did test positive, how likely is that to be true?
So you go back home and you test negative.
Yep.
How is life after that?
So after that, I was doing great. I still had 2 cancer treatments still at that point. So I did those, and then we rescanned, and they were like, it's like 90-80% reduced.
What were the cancer treatments again? Those infusions or something like that, like a shot?
You can do it through an IV. And again, it was kind of just like a lot of steroids. Also, apparently that's the way to fix me, is just pump me full of steroids. But it was mainly a lot of steroids. There were some other things obviously within that. But then they decided that a quicker way actually is it's the same treatment. It goes by a different name, which I can't really remember what it's called, but it's basically just a shot in the stomach, and it's about 20 minutes long because they have to take their time with it. But it's 20 minutes compared to like 2 hours of an IV, which I was like, yes, take that any day. So I did 2 of those, and they rescanned, and then it came back 80-90% reduced, and we're like, oh, cool. Like, that's pretty good. And even at that point, they're like, we honestly really can't even tell how reduced it is because it is like allergy season in a sense. And so some of it still could be allergies. So they were pretty happy with how much it did like help it. And so then I went and did 1 treatment every 4 weeks. So it was like another like 4 months. I just had like a treatment every month. And it was the same thing. And then I just actually got rescanned 2 weeks ago. And I was completely clear of it. It was all gone. Everything was fine. So now we're back to focusing on getting the kidney better because we still couldn't really stabilize it a whole lot because of like the cancer part of it. So now we're focusing back on that.
Got it. Okay. So right now, what's your kidney like?
Well, right now it's seen better days. I actually have another biopsy on Monday to kind of see where, it is kind of going. My numbers were kind of out of whack through a lot of the, treatment part of it. So I'm gonna this is just like what I'm assuming might happen is they're gonna do the biopsy, and then they are probably gonna want to do like one of those rejection treatment things. And I guess that's me like hoping like that's worst case scenario. But then at the same time, I feel like my brain is a pessimistic at sometimes, and it's just going to be like, oh, sorry, we don't know what we're going to do for you right now. But I don't know.
Okay, but what about the cancer then? How's that?
It's gone.
Gone.
Okay. Yep, it's all good.
COVID's gone.
COVID
if it was ever
gone.
there in the beginning.
Yes.
Okay, so it's just a matter of the kidney right now.
Yes.
Got it. Despite all these things, and I do, of course, hope the kidney stuff gets much better.
Yes, yeah.
Despite all this is an insane type of life you were living for a long while. Yeah. Technically, from when you were a young age, you've kind of been plagued with a lot of health difficulties.
Yeah.
You still managed to finish school in 4 years, finish up at Eureka College in just 4 years. You required no extra time. You didn't drop out, nothing like that.
Yep.
And your majors were what? Graphic design and sports business?
Yep.
That's really impressive. And you were do I understand this right? Did you bring back cheerleading to Eureka?
I did, yeah. So my freshman year we had it, and then sophomore year, I'm not 100% why, but it just didn't come back. And I was like sad about it. And so I ended up working for the vice president at the college, actually. And I don't think he knew I was a cheerleader. He just started talking to me about it at one day. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's the one that like really like convinced me like to bring it back. And I was like, all right. So like I went for it and it worked. So awesome. Yeah, I ended up bringing it back.
It's just really, and then you also landed a job in digital media marketing. Is that right too? Yeah. Despite being during COVID, right? Like during that epidemic when jobs are scarce and everything like that, you still managed to do that. You managed to do a lot of things despite a bunch of adversity.
Yes.
Well, a lot of people are going to want a little advice from you now, including people that I know personally have asked me to like kind of ask you this.
Okay.
So how have you managed to deal with all that struggle from a psychological perspective? I mean, you could see how a college-age girl like yourself, during what's supposed to be the most fun time of her life, could really let this destroy her. But it didn't with you. Why? Why is that? What is going on in your head that helped you to deal with these things and persevere? Not only persevere, but in a way kind of thrive despite that stuff.
Yeah. I don't really know if like I have like a perfect answer for it. I just know like I always did like one day at a time, I guess, in a sense. And I never focused on my difficulties in life. Like I'm sure like you could probably tell in high school, I didn't talk about it. I didn't show it. I didn't want it to be who I was. And I didn't want it to be who I was. And I didn't want people to look at me and think that that's all that they could see. So for me, I just didn't focus on it. I dealt with it. I did what I was supposed to do with it, but it was never at the front of like my mind of like, this is what has to be done type of thing. I just continued to live my life.
You didn't let it define you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And was there anyone that was, besides the obvious Jeff who gave you his kidney, were there people that you really thank for being able to get through this as well as you did? My parents, obviously. I mean, like my dad still to this day takes me up there for appointments because I kind of refuse to drive in Chicago. But I mean, he takes me to appointments. My mom was there too. My brother Greg, he was trying to lose enough weight so that he could be my donor. And you have great brothers.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And I mean, I still have Matt and like all that. So my family was really there for me. And it was actually when I got on dialysis, and it was we had our family Christmas, and everyone's like, oh, how you doing? And I didn't want to tell people at that point. I was like, this is a happy occasion. I'm not going to do that. And so I was just like, oh, I'm fine. Like, went on with it. And then I think about a week later, I just sent a text and I was like, hey, I just want to let you guys know this is what's going on. And I guess at that point is what made Jeff want to be tested, is from my understanding of it. But like my family was just there, and it's even like my cousins wanted to be tested, but it's so easy to get knocked out just by blood type alone because like you have to be a match, and I'm A negative, which is pretty rare.
That is rare.
And so that doesn't help anything either. And my sorority sisters were also there. I had so many of them sign up to be tested as well.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Your sorority sisters were willing to give you a kidney?
Yeah.
What
I know one. She's actually one of my best friends. She actually got further into the testing for it before she got like eliminated.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
She was close to being number one. No way.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise, that's incredible. And you're a big advocate for for us to all be organ donors, right?
Yes.
Why wouldn't we be? Because I mean, like, that's like, if you're listening to this, just be an organ donor when you go to the DMV. And I think they ask you that.
Yes,
there.
it's very simple. Like
yes.
at the DMV, they're like, are you already one or do you want to be? And you can either be like, yes, or hopefully you say yes.
Mm-hmm.
But you can say no. It is your choice. But at the same time, like for me, I just think about when you pass, what are you doing with them?
Yeah, you don't need those things anymore, you know? It's like,
exactly.
You don't need to get those to get into the kingdom of God, if that's what you're shooting for.
And on top of that, like, you can still live on through these other people. You can give them a second chance at life. Like, you can really redefine someone's life just by that one act alone by saying, yes, I want to be an organ donor.
Yeah.
Like, that's just my thought process on it.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, thank you for coming on. Your story is inspiring and you're an inspiration, and I enjoyed talking with you.
Yes, I enjoyed talking with you too. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. That's a wrap. Thanks.